This is Garis, Masculist, MGTOW flyers, that is 2-3 page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 533, part 2, entitled 2 Powerful Reasons Why It Is in Monoconscious Feminists' Self-Interest to Become Biconscious. Continuing straight on. Monoconscious feminists who constantly harp on about how men oppress women tend to be dumped by their male feminist boyfriends, since who wants to be with a misandrist, male-dumping feminazi bitch? The other sub-reason is that if the formerly monoconscious male feminist boyfriend becomes biconscious, that is, he learns some masculine ideas as well, before his monoconscious feminist girlfriend does, then she will face a much higher risk that he will dump her, because with his new masculine knowledge of how, in fact, women oppress men worse than vice versa, he will make him see his girlfriend's monoconsciousness as bigoted, so he will become disgusted with her. He may try to convert her to biconsciousness, but if she's a real MFB, that's monoconscious feminazi bigot, who remains dogmatically mentally closed to the idea of gender oppression being a two-way street, then her bigotry may so get on his nerves that his patience with her snaps and he just walks out the door into the arms and vaginas of biconscious feminists and women who see the gender political world as he does, since such women are much nicer for men to be with, who don't behave as feminazi bitches nagging him to death every day with messages on how men oppress women. Now for the second major group of monoconscious feminists, that is, those who don't have boyfriends. Only about 1 woman in 200 is lesbian, so the other 99.5% of women are heterosexual, so that implies that nearly all feminists are heterosexual, so are dependent on men for their sex and intimate companionship. Monoconscious feminists are still female, whose instincts push them, especially in their 30s, if they haven't yet had a kid, to reproduce. So they need a man to fertilize them and to help pay for them to raise a kid, since nearly all women, young women, know that it is virtually impossible, for practical reasons, to be both a committed full-time careerist and to raise very small children at the same time. Women who try to do this are called supermoms, and supermoms often burn out by the time they are 40, since being a supermom with the double stress of both career and motherhood is extremely demanding. So most women choose not to be supermoms. So, especially in their 30s, after a decade of screwing around in their 20s, their biological clocks are ticking hard and running down. So these women desperately start looking around for some man to help pay for them to have babies. So most feminists at some stage in their lives really want to get into a relationship with a man if they are to be mothers, which is what being female is ultimately about, the real raison d'etre of women. So if these single, manless, monoconscious feminists want to get a man, then they'll need to treat him nicely, since men are now well informed via the internet that women who are real feminazi cunts are repulsive to be near, so are avoided by men like the plague. So these women have to be nice to men or they don't get one. But it's not enough for these women to be nice to men. There are degrees of niceness to men. Some women are a lot nicer to men than others. For example, a biconscious feminist will be a lot nicer to men than a monoconscious feminist, since a monoconscious feminist will always have in the back of her mind the belief that men are pigs, men are rapists, men are toxic, etc. And that belief will inevitably sour her relationship with a man, and he will feel it and resent it. But a biconscious feminist generally loses her anger at men because she has been educated by the masculists how women oppress men, and in fact worse than vice versa. So if she gets angry at men's raping of women, for example, she only has to think of a far worse gender crime that women commit against men, namely that of decades-lasting man slavery, living off his labour and money for decades, because she was too lazy and immoral to bother to get a career-competent education and FIP up. That is, become a FIP equals financially independent person. A biconscious feminist will be far less feminazi bitchy towards her boyfriend, if at all, and hence will be freer to let out her innate female nurturative instinct towards her boyfriend, which is what men love in women, if women ever bother to show it. Masculists prefer their women to be snurfs, that's S-N-U-R-F-S, that's slim, nurturative fips. So a nurturative biconscious feminist is much more attractive to a man than a monoconscious feminazi bitch. As masculists and MGTOW, open brackets, equals men going their own way, rejecting marriage and paternity, due largely to the toxicity of the divorce courts, taken over by the hated fluffy feminists, who then made divorce toxic for men, hence made marriage and paternity toxic for men, close brackets. Ideas spread. There will be more and more biconscious feminists who will constitute a second major category of feminists. Since biconscious feminists are much nicer to be with for men than monoconscious feminists, then men, biconscious masculisted men, will prefer biconscious women. So biconscious feminists will be more likely to attract these men than monoconscious feminists, who often try to hide their true feelings towards men, seeing men as the gender political enemy. But they can't hide these feelings totally, and their boyfriends resent them for this. So, a few years from now, millions of monoconscious feminists will be noticing that the quality men, the ones they really want to mate with, to have as boyfriends, prefer the biconscious feminists, and that realization will stop them in their tracks. They'll be reading the women's magazine articles that state that biconscious feminists are more likely to find a boyfriend, and that idea will stick in their throats, motivating them to learn more about masculine ideas so that they too can become biconscious and hence be more likely to find a boyfriend. Thus, they will become conscious that it is very much in their self-interest to become biconscious if they want to have a boyfriend and to have a baby, rather than continuing to rot on the shelf as a man-hating, misandrist, male-dumping, monoconscious, feminazi bitch. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. Author of the book Masculism, Men's Rebellion Against Being Man-Slaves to Women, an e-textbook of 530 plus masculist flyers for men's studies courses. Freely downloadable in Microsoft Word format from my website. Ciao.